Who says you can't be the topic of conversation for all the right reasons? The Hyundai Tucson Hybrid pairs bold presence with advanced technology and sleek style. It's everything you didn't know you needed in an SUV and then some. Okay, Hyundai. Visit HyundaiUSA.com to learn more.
A hostel in Romania's top 10 ways to survive a werewolf attack. Throughout college, Joe and a few of his friends' favorite pastime was going backpacking. Virtually any free time they had, they were hiking the mountains in upstate New York. It was what they loved to do, and it was their favorite thing to do together. So, their senior year, they came up with an idea. They decided that in celebration of graduating college, that summer, they would go backpacking in Europe. Their senior year, they saved up every dime they could, and the following summer, they took their vacation. They traveled all over Europe, and the last place they ended up was Bucharest, Romania. They ended up staying in a hostel there for a few weeks before their trip back home to New York. These final days were full of bar crawling and hanging out with the local girls. But one thing that struck them as odd about the place is almost everybody they met warned them about the werewolves. They were told to not stay out late at night or travel off the beaten path, and that if they saw one, just turn and walk away. That vacationers often went missing because they wouldn't listen to the local lore. They didn't believe it until it was too late. Initially, John and the boys chuckled at the notion. Werewolves? Come on. They didn't believe a word they were saying. They just chalk it up as part of the tourist experience until one night. Joe and his crew had just closed the local dive bar and were making their way back to their hostel. They remember being pretty drunk, but not that drunk. They were about a quarter of a mile away from their hotel when they saw a large, looming figure in an alleyway. Joe's buddy spotted it first. Guys, what is that? I don't know, bro, but it's freaking huge. Unsure of what they were witnessing, the group was frozen, and that's when it happened. The beast stepped into the light and was looking right at them. It growled and let out a monstrous roar. Dumbfounded, they just stood there, and much to their surprise, the beast then just turned and walked away. That's when they'd snap back to reality and run as fast as they could back to the hostel, shut their door, and lock it for the night. None of them had slept a wink. The next morning, they rushed downstairs and told the desk clerk exactly what happened. In their mind, they thought for sure they would contact authorities, but much to their surprise, they didn't. To the locals, this was a common occurrence, and they really didn't care what a bunch of drunken Americans had to say about it. In fact, they kind of laughed. So bewildered, they sat down for breakfast and couldn't believe what had happened. But they must have made quite a commotion with the desk clerk because the hostel owner decided to join them. He sat down with an I told you so grin on his face and wasted no words. The first and most effective way you survive a werewolf attack. As the owner sat down with Joe and his friends for breakfast that day, he looked at them and smiled and said, "You want to know the 10 different ways you survive a werewolf attack?" Of course, as a result of their sighting the night before, they were wide-eyed and tuned in. "Yes, please tell us." "All right," he said. "Number 1, and the most important way you survive a werewolf attack, is to stay inside on a full moon." But, he proclaimed, this is not foolproof, as experienced werewolves can shapeshift on command. He went on that the full moon tends to have more of a pull on newer, younger werewolves than the experienced ones. "All right, good to know," the group said. Number 2, arm yourself with the most effective killing power. "Werewolves are hard to kill," he said. "They're big and they seem angry, but it's not impossible. Crossbows, axes, rifles, and or pistols that have bullets encased in silver or bullets encased in mercury are the most effective and will get the job done." The local bouncers, on the other hand, claim that they like to use tasers when they decide to run up on them. It stops them in their tracks, and after they tase them, they can finish them off. Number 3, wear wolfsbane when you're outside. The hostel owner swore that this worked. He claimed that the poisonous flower, also known as Devil's Helmet, had supernatural powers and would repel the beasts. He then pulled a bag of them dry out of his pocket and sold them to the boys for 10 euros. "Line each pocket with these fellas, and I promise the smell will ward them off." Number 4, count on alchemy and herbs to protect you. As explained before, silver and mercury work the best. All the werewolf hunters of old would carry a number of herbs and for sure silver and mercury. They'd have jars full of special grains, rye, mountain leaves, or even ash. Number 5, avoid desolate areas at night. You remember the movie An American Werewolf of London, he said? The story where them two boys went backpacking in London and they visited that small village pub? Well, it's a true story. My uncle used to own the pub. He warned them two boys not to go in the moors that night, that they didn't know what they were getting into, but a lot of good that did. They went anyway, and they got attacked. So fellas, mind you don't go into areas that are desolate and out in the woods at night. Don't worry, that won't be a problem, Joe and his friends said. Number 6, get you a couple of big old dogs. Werewolves like easy pickings, and they don't want to have to fight a couple massive dogs, especially wolf hybrids. Number 7, set up traps for the occasion, and when you happen to run into one, run towards the traps. If you're fast, you'll live, and he'll spring the trap. At that point, you can leave him until morning, he'll turn back to human, and you can reconcile your differences. Number 8, actually follow the werewolves home. It has been done, but it takes a lot more guts than most people have. If you follow him home, you can wait, and you can spring your trap, or you can catch him off guard at that point. Number 9, magic. You can recite an incantation. For example, if you know who the werewolf is in person, you can change them back by calling the Christian name 3 times, and it'll actually cure them. That's what happened to you, weren't it, David? He looked at the bellboy. He nodded his head. Yup, sure did, and it saved my life. And number 10, and last but most certainly not least, make sure if you go out, you got a really slow friend. He laughed out loud. Everybody looked at each other and agreed, yes sir, Simon, you're the one, you're the bait. The owner said, yup, where do you think the term throwing them to the wolves came from? He bellowed out with laughter. It's survival of the fittest out here, boys, and you better know what you're doing. Either way, I'm glad I could help you boys, and you guys have a good rest of your vacation, and be safe out there. Joe and his friends honestly couldn't believe what they had just experienced. It was surreal, yet it seemed authentic. This was the focal point of their trip. They never thought in a million years that they would experience something so incredible. To this day, whenever they get together, Joe and his friends have to mention the time that they went to Romania and experienced the culture of werewolves and actually saw one. I myself have even talked to people who had messaged me from Romania, and before I read the story, they made this exact claim. Not only that, I was told by the same person that there's even a lot more truth to the story of Dracula than they put out there, and that the true story of Vlad the Impaler is much more similar to the movie Dracula, the newest one. That in fact Vlad the Impaler, to defend his people, did venture up to the mountains and meet a creature that gave him supernatural powers. But it's hard to say. You never know at the end of the day, cause truth can oftentimes be stranger than fiction, folks. Stay tuned for more. Love y'all. I am out.